The Typhonian War. Act 1. The Chaos Born and the Ruin of Divine Order. Olympus choked on sacrificial fat. The deities celebrated the slaughter of the serpent-legged giants. The Phlegraean fields became a massive abattoir. The corpses of Gaia's colossal sons lay torn, butchered by the arrows of mortal Heracles. Black gore oozed into the arid fissures. The womb of the earth shuddered with silent weeping. Her primordial children were not merely defeated. They were slaughtered like cattle, slain by a creature reeking of sweat and decay. The Great Mother felt only raw emptiness and fury. She descended into the deepest abysses of the cosmos, down where ancient darkness grew cold. There, amidst soot, pitch, and the fumes of her butchered children's fresh blood, the wronged ground coupled with grim Tartarus, it was a mating of pure despair and vengeance. The fruit of this spasm was the final, most monstrous abomination of flesh, Typhon, a living weapon, spawned with a single purpose: to tear out the heart of Olympus and snap the spine of the heavens. He grew faster than night shadows. He surpassed every measure of the living. From the waist up, a colossal human torso loomed, crowned by a savage skull. It rose so high that his matted, greasy locks scraped the cold stars. His mangled, weathered face vanished into the midnight gloom. When he stretched out his arms, his left hand plunged into the silt of the furthest east. His right hand crushed the granite of the distant west. Instead of fingers, 100 reptilian maws swarmed on his wrists, biting their own scales. They ceaselessly spewed black, tarry flame and venom that hissed against the stone. Below the hips, his human form vanished. There, hundreds of heavy vipers pulsed and coiled into massive living knots, rearing with a dull hiss up to his shoulders. Coarse, bristling feathers coated this colossus of muscle. From the slits of his eyes, on his mane, hideous face, and every serpentine throat, glared a crimson, searing light. The throats of this multi-headed entity shrieked in 100 different keys. The main maw roared like a maddened bull or a hoarse lion before the slaughter. His serpent hands bayed like a pack of starved hounds. His viper legs emitted a sharp, whistling hiss that shattered bedrock. When the behemoth drew himself to his full height, the flint crust of the world cracked beneath his heavy tread. He marched on Olympus. He ripped coastal cliffs from the soil, hurling incandescent boulders into the firmament. Scalding torrents and filthy sea foam erupted from his 100 maws. A primal terror seized the immortals. The radiant rulers of the cosmos trembled and fled. They abandoned marble palaces to the fury of subterranean fires. They fled south, where the scorching, dust-choked sands of Egypt offered some asylum from the beast's all-seeing eye. There, amidst the frantic crush, the world's masters renounced their majesty. They feverishly mutilated their own immortal forms to become livestock and wild beasts. Apollo cast away his shining crown, plunging into suffocating clouds as a gray, predatory hawk. Cunning Hermes masked his treacherous mind beneath the curved beak and filthy plumage of a Nile ibis. Raging Ares, who had just laughed amidst the bloody carnage of the giants, dove into the bottom silt in panic, transforming into a mute, slimy fish with frozen eyes. Dionysus tangled himself in briars, reduced to a mangy, reeking goat. Artemis the huntress skulked in the thickets, a lithe feline flinching at every stir of the air. Even the queen of the gods, proud Hera, huddled in the nearest shed as a snow-white cow. Her hooves rattled against the manure. From her jaws dripped the thick froth of animal dread. Humanity cowered in burrows like worms, holding their breath in subterranean darkness. They waited for the 100-armed freak to obliterate their settlements and erase all memory of mankind. Only the Sky Father stood firm on the precipice of a shattered cliff. A ruler's pride, heavier than the ridges, and fierce shame before an empty, ancient throne bound his fingers to the scorched hilt of his thunderbolt. Beside him, through the stench and smoke, stood Pallas Athena. Her eyes blazed with merciless contempt. She would not run. The daughter lashed her father with savage words, branding the other gods as cowards, demanding only one thing: iron, flesh, and blood. Act 2. The King's Fall and the Secret Healing. The Thunderer stepped into the void. Lightning crackled in his iron right hand. Slung in his belt was the adamantine sickle, the same jagged blade Cronus once used to castrate his father, Uranus. Zeus strode across the clouds, unleashing blinding pillars of fire. The ground beneath the giant melted like wax. The sky bled with a living, crimson glow. Ocean waters boiled to the seabed. They collided at Mount Cassios, where Syria jams into the Egyptian marshes. The Thunder Lord struck with a sweeping arc, driving the adamantine sickle deep into the 100-armed mass with a sickening crunch. The Colossus roared. Black, toxic fluid flooded the slopes. The monster recoiled. The Thunderer, blinded by early triumph, surged forward for the death blow. It was his undoing. The Titan was swifter. Hundreds of viper coils clamped around the god's torso with a dull whistle, crushing ribs into splinters. A violent wrench, and the jagged sickle flew from numb fingers. The monster pinned the king beneath him. Merciless talons tore into the joints. The monster ripped the white tendons from the Thunderer's limbs alive. The Lord of the Cosmos went limp, reduced to a boneless sack of pale flesh. He slung the helpless form over his gore-drenched shoulders. He crossed the sea, casting the fallen king into the depths of the Corycian cave. The supreme Sky Lord lay in putrid mire. His sinewless flesh slowly leaked burning ichor onto cold basalt slabs. Above him loomed the dragoness Delphone, half woman, half serpent, whose scaled tail never slept. The realm ossified without law. Typhon ruled the ash wastes. Under his venomous breath, all fresh water in mortal realms soured into bitter gall. Smothering soot choked out the sun for long months. Birds plummeted mid-flight, strangled by the sulphurous stench erupting from 100 dragon maws. The ground parched and fractured, hurtling back toward primordial chaos. Olympus stood desolate, choked with ash and dust. Then Hermes, the cat-footed thief alongside the shaggy forest dweller Egypton, risked a desperate heist. They slipped into the Cilician underworld like shadows. Egypton pressed a reed flute to his lips. From its pipes poured a mournful, sweet melody capable of lulling death itself. Encountering the spell, the dragoness lowered her heavy eyelids bound by the sound. The trickster moved without a wasted motion. He drew the bearskin from beneath her scaled underbelly without shifting a single stone. Stepping over the monster's numbed coils, the thief glided deeper into the stifling depths of the grotto. He walked blind, guided only by the heavy reek of spilled divine blood and the faint white luminescence of burning ichor. The father of the pantheon lay at the very bottom of the cavern, pressed into cold muck. He was a motionless, mangled hunk of meat, able only to wheeze through broken teeth and stare into the subterranean blackness with swollen eyes. Hermes knelt in the slime beside the fallen king and unfurled the heavy bearskin. Armed with ancient lore of the secret knots of immortal flesh, Hermes worked methodically. Thread by thread, he threaded the raw, bloody sinews back through the god's torn meat, stitching the severed joints together against the thunderer's muffled groans. With a wet crunch, the god's muscles swelled once more with their former iron. In his chest boiled a fury the cosmos had never witnessed. Act 3. The Return of Thunder and the Eternal Tomb. The Olympian did not waste a second. He vaulted onto a chariot drawn by 4 fire-breathing monsters and tore into the heavens. Heavy lightning bolts, freshly forged by Cyclopes in subterranean furnaces, blazed in his fists. The Titan saw his healed nemesis. His serpentine lower limbs plowed the granite once more. Zeus pursued the beast across lands and seas, searing his back into a black scab. At Mount Etna, a third force entered the fray. The 3 grim fates. The goddesses of destiny stepped forth to meet the behemoth, masking their pale countenances behind the guises of gentle nymphs. They offered the giant succulent ephemeral fruits, whispering sweetly that this nourishment would grant him the power to overthrow heaven. The monster believed them. With a wet gulp, he swallowed the toxic fruit. Instantly, the primordial poison of destiny boiled in his guts. The dragon heads on his hands convulsed, tearing at each other. The giant's muscles withered. His serpentine tails trailed helplessly through the mud. Broken, the creature crawled north toward Thrace to the bleak slopes of Mount Hermes. Here the slaughter reached its zenith. Summoning his final spasming strength, the Titan uprooted entire mountain ranges and hurled them at the sky. But the Sky Lord countered. His lightning shattered the granite blocks mid-air, raining a hail of razor-sharp shards back upon the primordial abomination. Massive stone crags smashed the beast's ribs, crushing his reptilian crests. Thick black blood erupted in a torrent so immense it flooded the mountain slopes, painting the peak in the hue of rot and slaughter. Blinded by pain, drenched in scalding ichor, Typhon fled across the Sicilian Sea. Zeus overtook him right at the shoreline. Exerting all his might, the thunderer ripped the colossal Mount Etna from the womb of the earth. The void swallowed the horrific groaning snap of terrestrial bone as the god hoisted the island's massive basalt foundation and brought it crashing down onto the head of Gaia's serpent-legged son. The Titan did not perish. The lineage of Tartarus knows no mortality. As the mountain sealed him beneath its mass, a final breath from 100 dragon heads escaped from under its colossal base, freezing the ocean still. The monster survived, crushed under the weight of the island. To this day, when he shifts beneath Sicily's stone plates, the earth quakes. Torrents of molten sulfur and fire erupt from the searing maw of Etna. It is the imprisoned rage of the beast, breathing. The war ended. The Olympians' cold order settled over the world like a tombstone. The divine returned to Olympus. Yet, in their golden eyes a reflection of terror remained, the dread of an apocalypse that almost tore reality apart. The world fell silent. The smoke of human sacrifice no longer billowed into clouds. It crawled across the dirt as a heavy black shroud. Deep beneath that soil, the mangled heart of chaos still pulses. Order is established. But that which was torn apart and buried alive will not forget the taste of vengeance. It simply waits in the dark.